Hello Neighbor. My god, I thought this game would not be such a fucking nightmare to play. You know, with my channel, I want to focus on reviewing and making retrospectives on more horror type video games, because there are just so many unique games out there that challenge how the player deals with fear and stressful situations. But with Hello Neighbor, it's so very much known that this game had basically everything in the bag. There was AI that was basically revolutionary for its time in the alpha mode, and like how the art style seemed pretty hyperbolized, but also down to earth, making the player uneasy with their setting. Like, this game had everything to become one of the best horror games, but somewhere down the line of development, something went wrong, and to this day, the game is regarded to be one of the worst games of all time. And after playing through most of the game this past week, I'm here to tell you it's not one of the worst games ever. It is the worst game ever. This game isn't even a game at this point, it's that bad. I don't understand how after 7 years from the first stage of development on Hello Neighbor, this shit cannot even be played for 5 minutes without encountering a game-breaking bug. Like, this game is awful. It has no redeeming qualities whatsoever, even to the point where if this game was free to play, no, if you were paid to play this game in one sitting, I would heavily recommend you just to not take the opportunity. That's how much disdain I hold for this game. Now, with my basic level bitching out of the way, what exactly is Hello Neighbor, and who were the ones behind the creation for this thing? Well, Hello Neighbor is a stealth-based horror game first created in 2015 by the indie development team known as tinyBuild, the team behind Totally Reliable Delivery, Guts and Glory, and the game that every single commentary channel in 2017 uses, Cluster Truck. tinyBuild is pretty well known for their hits in the indie scene, and at first, Hello Neighbor was one of these hits, because in 2016, the pre-alpha would be released to the public, and it seemed to be beloved almost instantly. People like Jacksepticeye and Markiplier were quick to make videos on the games, because back then, it was a really good game. You see, the overall objective of the pre-alpha was to just get into the locked basement of the neighbor's house. As you could see in the intro, the dude's extremely defensive about what's inside. The premise might seem a little bit too oversimplified, but the real fun and the challenge was the actual neighbor. You see, tinyBuild sold people on the fact that the AI was extremely complex, as it would learn the actions of what you did the more you play the game. So maybe on your first run, the neighbor is just following you when he sees or hears you, but over time he'll set up cameras and traps and in some locations that you previously entered, while also focusing his efforts on spots that you've been at the most. It gives a challenge to the player and a sense of horror, as you could feel the learning machine was slowly gaining the upper hand against you. But that was just the pre-alpha, nothing more than a simple demo. Over time, an actual launch of the alpha build would release, and it was loved even more than the alpha. The setting of the house was changed, adding more depth into the game, the AI was getting smarter and getting more of an advantage, and most importantly, a story was being built regarding the basement. Everything that was changed from the pre-alpha into Alpha 1 was perfect, to the point that the game would become so popular that people like MatPat would even make game theories about this game. We do know how the game theories would turn out, however, as the whole team would basically be begging MatPat to cover their franchise again. But let's not talk about that before I go ahead and die of complete and utter embarrassment. But in November of 2016, Alpha 2 would release, and this would be the peak popularity of the game. I can't really say much about it, as it did everything Alpha 1 did, but a lot better. However, the very next month, Alpha 3 would release, and it was just bad. tinyBuild hyperbolized everything about the neighbor's house, adding trains and windmills to the place, which just made the game look very childish. It broke the immersion of an unsettling art style combined with the stealth aspect when you break into a place that looks like it was ripped off of a Dr. Seuss book. But I digress, as Alpha 4 would come out an entire year later, and it was looking extremely similar to Alpha 3. This was the point where people realized that the game wasn't going to be anything like its previous builds. Maybe that was because they wanted Hello Neighbor to have a house that wasn't forgettable and just had a staple, or maybe it was because a lot more family-friendly channels were picking up on the game, so tinyBuild was trying to cater to a younger audience. Who really knows? But at that time, we knew tinyBuild was taking a bad direction, and a lot of fans would start to leave due to not liking the game anymore. But then, in July of 2017, the game would be fully released, and it sucks. It genuinely sucks. Everything about this game is a major step down compared to its previous releases. From the AI being completely broken to there being more bugs than actual good features, this game should not have been released at this state. Everything, and I mean everything about this game is just abysmal. So for the rest of this video, I want to break apart the full release of the game and describe what each act is like and how overall the game is just the worst horror game ever created. So with that said, sit back, relax, and watch as the neighbor gets stuck for the millionth fucking time. The game starts off with a little kid kicking a ball down the road. Already you can tell that this game is just on another level when you take a look at this horrendous player model of that being a grown-ass dude shrunk down to a kid's size. Even the animation of the protagonist just feels clunky, and the transition into the game is so rough. So your ball rolls up to the neighbor's house, and oh no, you hear some screaming as the neighbor's locking up the basement door. Next thing you know, he sees you and he fucking bursts down this window, and I don't know, it just fades to fucking black. They don't ever explain what the hell happens to you. You just spawn in the adjacent house, and now your objective is to get into the neighbor's house. What a just great way to enter this game. Now, in the beginning cutscene, you probably saw the neighbor put a red key on the table in the second floor. So with that said, I'm here to give you a little bit of a pop quiz. You know what? Cue the Jeopardy music, Zach Quinn. Let's see if you, the viewer, can decide what option is best when it comes to beating the first act. Do you, the player, A, ask to enter the basement, B, continue playing the ball like a little coward bitch baby, C, go out and find some bitches for once in your life, or D, grab some cardboard boxes from the side of the house, place them on the shelf in front of the house to climb onto the second floor, in which you get rid of a painting that has a secret passage into another room where you get 2 keys. One to unlock the door to make the shortcut easier, and the other to open up the trunk of the car that's crashed in the front of the lawn to get a magnet. You then go to the back of the house to stack more boxes to reach a window so you can attract a lockpick with the magnet to open up the room, to get the wrench to open up the ladder in the back of the house as well, to climb up on the roof to get to the key to unlock the door to the basement. The answer is C. Throughout this entire game, you'll notice that there's no direction whatsoever. I know this is meant to explore the house while trying to avoid the neighbor, but it gets to the point where you don't even know that half of the items exist until you somehow come across them after wandering for about half an hour, or when you eventually look up a walkthrough to the game. Now, I know that Act 1 is pretty simple and is used to introduce you for what's to come, but like, take this for example in Act 3 of the game. And no, I will not describe to you what is in Act 3, as there's just way too much happening in it. To get to to the upper levels of the house, you have to parkour your way up to the stairs to reach a bunch of doors, paintings, and other junk on the floor. What you're supposed to do is ignore the other rooms, take the junk off the floor, and throw it at the paintings until one of them gets activated and a secret room opens up. How the fuck are you supposed to figure this out? There were absolutely no hints of this becoming a possibility, so how could someone with no prior knowledge to the game just do this? Like, throughout the game, when everything just becomes more weirder and wackier, the objectives to advance just get so much more confusing, and I shit you not, if you could beat this game legitimately without looking up any walkthrough, I will give you a nice high five, I guess. However, if you'd like to beat Act 1 in a different way, you could maybe try this out. Grab a box and throw it outside the neighbor's house. It may take a couple times, but eventually the box will hit a solid surface on the outside and will make the neighbor investigate, or just wait a few minutes until the neighbor gets inevitably stuck on some random shit. Then you grab an irregular shaped object like a trash bag or a lawnmower and just simply run over it. You'll get launched in random directions, and hopefully one try will launch you into the air and land you on the second floor. I don't know why this is still a thing, considering that this game is practically years old, but I'm not even kidding when I tell you that this is not even the best exploit that you can do in this game. But moving on to the basement, you open a washing machine to find a room that's supposed to imitate a regular room on the first floor. Breaking the windows, you find out that your new goal is to escape the basement. This segment completely sucks ass. You have to use the power to open and close certain gates while creating shortcuts to maneuver past any obstacle. That's fine. The puzzle, it's pretty fun. What's fucking ass about this level is the beginning, specifically the imitation room. It's pretty common knowledge in the game that breaking windows or making things collide will attract the neighbor. He has ears, it's pretty much common sense. With this room, you always have to break the windows, as they will respawn once you die, and if you've already died beforehand, the neighbor just lurks right outside the room. So not only can neighbors just set up traps in the imitation room, but he can also just enter it immediately. It removes any form of danger when you're doing this for the 50th time while the AI is kicking your ass in 2 milliseconds. But anyhow, once you finally make it out, you get chased by the neighbor down a long tunnel until you counter a locked door and he catches you. I said he catches you. God damn it, dude. How did tinyBuild take pride in this AI? You then wake up in another imitation room, I guess. Like, once you break the window again, you're just completely somewhere different. But whatever, I guess. You leave the basement and you find yourself in what seems to be the neighbor's house, but this time, everything's a little bit different. The walls are fortified, there's barbed wire to prevent climbing, there's shark-infested waters making it impossible to swim. How do you get out of what seems to be Fort Knox? It's just gonna be a near impossible task that takes hard work, dedication, and motivation to become. Yeah, just stack boxes on the roof and jump over the wall. Most walkthroughs actually rely on this exploit than actually how to beat the stage, so it's okay. You're missing nothing. I assure you, you are missing nothing. Actually, you're doing yourself a favor just doing this exploit to skip Act 2, because every single time you die, you have to see this cutscene. It gets old fairly quickly. Once leaving, you see a cutscene of the neighbor trying to come get you, but some screaming happens which lures him away. I don't know why they're screaming, it won't be brought up ever again. Like, spoiler alert for Hello Neighbor, they never explain the missing children signs that you maybe saw from the beginning cutscene. They don't explain what's actually in the basement, it just happens in the game. Or if they do explain it, they don't do a good job at it, with them only showing snippets of what happened to the neighbor once you die too many times. There are some theories in the wiki, and the later games down this series explains the shit a little bit more, but the base game alone, the storytelling sucks and has no value to the game. And you know, I really mean it when the storytelling is awful, when the exact same cutscene the protagonist literally wakes up from his nap. That's right, it was all a fucking dream. I don't know about you all, but when I see a movie or a game use the "it was all just a dream" trope for about half of its runtime, it just ruins any suspense, as any build up to who you are or to who the neighbor is just gets thrown at the window. It's also just a cheap tactic that explains the regenerating windows or the crazy house feature, which I think kinda just blows. But anyways, you get a letter in your apartment with backwards lettering just like every other word in the game. Usually you want to tell your audience why the protagonist is doing what they're doing, but you know, next thing you know, you're back in the neighborhood, but this time it's all broken down for some reason. And to add on the question of what the hell is even happening, you then go back to sleep without unpacking anything, and also while you're in a literal rotting house, and you wake up to see the neighbor's house back American Restoration with multiple stories and a windmill, and I have given up caring about this plot. Act 3 is the largest portion of the game, and that's because you're going to be roaming throughout this entire time. Like I said, beat this game without any walkthrough and I'll give you a high five, but let's see you try to figure out how to turn on the train, control it, and use it as a parkour to get on the roof, to use cardboard boxes to destroy the windmill. I don't know, it's such a tedious process to get any progress. But surprisingly enough, the tedious process is not the worst part of Act 3, because what really sucks are the mini games within the level. They show up once you enter certain parts of the house, and they are by far the most unpolished and unfun parts of this game. The first minigame you enter is a grocery store with a cart on tracks and mannequins pushing other carts. These mannequins will charge at you if you're standing up, and if you crouch, you get a grainy filter and become invisible. This power works maybe half of the time if you're lucky. One moment when they're chasing you, you can crouch and they'll forget that you ever existed, but at other moments, if you crouch, they still charge at you, and next thing you know, you're dead. It's even better when the mannequins respawn at random, will break and spin in circles, and will push your cart, causing your items in there to clip out. Oh wait, I forgot the items. You're supposed to pick up 5 specific items to put into a cart. If you don't do it by the end of the track, you die and you have to restart the minigame. But are there any instructions on what to get? Or are there any tie-ins to the items that you have to pick up? No. You genuinely have to fail over and over until you get the right items, while also having to deal with this game-breaking AI. If this sounds miserable, just you wait to the other ones. The second minigame is a parkour stage. You shrink down in a pantry with the goal to make it to the top where you unlock double jump. This one sucks, but it is the best one of the 3. Parkour really isn't good in this game, so I have no clue why tinyBuild wanted to heavily focus on it specifically in the 3rd act, but it's whatever. The scenery in the enlarged pantry makes it not too bad. The third minigame is when I stopped playing though. Not because I was mad at the game, which to be fair, the minigame was objectively the worst one of the bunch, but also because this shit genuinely softlaw, causing me to have to restart my entire computer. The things I do for you guys. Your goal in this minigame is to make it out to the other side of this elongated classroom while also having to hide from the mannequins. They're all active after a certain bell rings, and when they are not active, a teacher mannequin that's for some reason faster than the fucking Flash is out to get you. To hide from this large group, you have to stay into the locker until the bell rings. Oh, and fun fact here, when you start the stage, you have about 5 seconds to hide into a locker, or else you die over and over and over again. Great development, tinyBuild. I love it when I die without even knowing that I respawn. But with the teacher one, you kind of just have to pray. I still don't understand what triggers this teacher. I thought at first if you move, it attacks you, but that theory was thrown out the window when it caught me standing still, and it also caught me when it clipped through a locker. This minigame literally relies on luck to get through. You have to be in the right place at the right time, or else you will die numerous amount of times. Oh, and if you beat the minigame, you unlock the push feature, but have fun trying to get through this one. After that minigame, you're basically done in Act 3. You have to go find the key and then go into the basement not even 5 minutes later. It really brings up the question of why did you just do these minigames? If they were to unlock new abilities, then why were they put into the last stage of the neighbor's house? Right after is the 10-minute finale in which you have no danger at all and you only have to use them once or twice in certain spots. So doing these 3 minigames to unlock new shit is pretty useless when you were giving no room to use them. Act 4, the finale. I really don't know how to describe this because at this point, I just lost all care for the game. I already know that there's going to be no satisfying conclusion to the game. I know that the level is going to be distorted beyond belief to make the setting look nice, but it does the exact opposite. And like, I know I've been dreaming since the beginning of Act 3, actually since the beginning of the entire game, so the thought of consequence on the player or character has been gone throughout the entire game, making the story and the thought of being caught, it's just non-existent. Like, why should I care about what the hell happens here when I literally wake up in the next cutscene? Overall, this game just sucks. It's completely broken to the point where it's on the verge of just being unplayable. There's no stealth or thought when approaching the neighbor at all, since you can just outrun him most of the times. Hell, the horror part in the game couldn't even scare a 4-year-old. That's how horrifying this game is. Like, I think at this point, tinyBuild knew that Hello Neighbor was a sinking ship, probably in like Alpha 4 or something like that. They did basically nothing to improve the game after launch or even after Alpha 4, and once they wiped their hands clean from the project, they immediately moved on to making sequels to capitalize on the hype before everyone figures out how fucking shit of a game they made. Like, we really didn't need a cart building game that was supposedly about Hello Neighbor, but it has absolutely nothing to do about Hello Neighbor. There was no effort put into this game, and to this day, I am shocked to see that there was a 9 out of 10 rating rate on Steam. But with that said, I think I'm just gonna end this video here. Thank you guys so much for watching this video about the worst horror game of all time. If you guys liked this video, maybe hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you all later. Bye for now.